We begin NFL Live with breaking news out of Minnesota, where the Vikings have fired GM Kwesi Adofo-Mensah after 4 seasons. This firing coming just 7 months after signing a multi-year contract extension with the team. Our Adam Schefter posted more background on the firing on X. Throughout the season, there was talk about an underlying tension in the Vikings building and league circles. One league source said it had been ugly in Minnesota. Then today, the Vikings fired Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. Vikings owner and team president Mark Wilf spoke to the media moments ago.
This is a critical offseason. Ultimately, we felt the change was necessary in football operations and did not feel comfortable going forward into this offseason with the current leadership. It's not about any one decision or move. We looked at the situation cumulatively. We just didn't feel confident going through the entirety of the offseason, an additional draft, and free agency with this structure.
Okay, so much to get into on this Friday. Glad you're with us today. Mina, RC, Swagoo here for the hour. Mina, I'll start with you. What's your reaction to this news?
Yeah, I'm surprised. Not surprised by the decision, but surprised by the timing. That's what's shocking here, right? Because Viking season ended weeks ago. They had their meetings back then, sent him to the Senior Bowl, apparently. The timing makes me think this is reactive to Sam Darnold being in the Super Bowl. It's hard not to feel that way. Now, as far as whether that's fair, I don't think that's fair. I think it is fair, however, to criticize the draft classes, and those have been shared widely today. The Vikings have had a lot of misses in the draft, none greater, of course, than the pick of J.J. McCarthy, their quarterback. I know it's too soon to say that completely, but obviously the early results are not promising. There's nothing wrong than moving off of a veteran quarterback who struggled at the end of the season and drafting a rookie in the first round. It has worked for a lot of teams, but you have to hit on that rookie. And more so than hit on that rookie, guys, if they had even gotten average quarterback play out of their rookie, I frankly think that he would still have his job. But it was far from that, and that's how you end up in this position. You can't miss on the most important position in the game.
Absolutely. And now there's a history of these draft picks not landing or not being productive under Adofo-Mensah, but it's obviously pinpointed and centering around J.J. McCarthy. I do believe that it's partly because Sam Darnold was able to go off and have this fantasy season and lead a team to the Super Bowl, but it's the fact that J.J. McCarthy was in the building. J.J. McCarthy was there during training camp. You knew a little bit about who he was, and with having him in the building, you still made the evaluation that led to the decision of allowing Sam Darnold to be acquired by the Seattle Seahawks. And when you look at this team, you go from 14-3. You're a team that's in the playoffs, and then the next year you completely miss, and you miss because of not bad quarterback play, but at times terrible and inexcusable quarterback play, while your quarterback, or the quarterback of last year, is now starting in the Super Bowl for the Super Bowl favorite.
Ooh.
Yeah, MK and RC, y'all both alluded to it. And obviously seeing Sam Darnold now in the Super Bowl. But I think the point is that you just talked about, this was a 14-win team last year. I'm not sure if Sam Darnold being in the Super Bowl adds more pressure than the fact that you saw this decline from 1 year. Now, the quarterback obviously is the common denominator in Sam Darnold, but the J.J. McCarthy part of it, you took a swing on a quarterback that you thought would be a good first rounder. And I know we've gotten to a point since we've been on this show for a lot of these rookies that have performed very well in their first year. But ultimately, this is always a situation where it's up for grabs if you really got the guy that you hope you got. But I think the most important point, the way I look at it in my estimation, is the fact that you were a 14-win team last year. You did get really good quarterback play out of Sam Darnold. You had an opportunity to go into the playoffs, and we know how that ended, but you made that decision based solely off 2 games at the end of the year as opposed to the complete body of work. And now we sit here with Sam Darnold being in the Super Bowl. To go from a 14-win team to what we saw the Minnesota Vikings become this year, I think speaks more to why Kwesi is no longer there.
Yeah, go ahead, RC.
Yeah, Mina, I know you talk to a lot of these GMs and you deal in the analytics with a lot of these departments. How do you think they came to the decision in the offseason? Because you had already acquired acquired J.J. McCarthy, how much of a general manager and executives wanting to be right about drafting a guy leads to someone like Sam Darnold leaving the building?
You know, I think this is more about player evaluation than it is about any analytic strategy, because we all know having a rookie quarterback who's good on a rookie contract is a cheat code in the NFL. One of them is in the Super Bowl right now, and that's a large part of why the Patriots were able to load up in free agency at the position and spend elsewhere and spend so much money. It doesn't take an analytics expert to want that to happen, and it's a big part of why so many quarterbacks were drafted in the first round that year, right? Including, of course, Atlanta and Denver, who made it into the playoffs as well. But this is not about analytics. This is about choosing and developing the quarterback. And that's where this went south. And as far as who chose him and the development, well, that's kind of the missing piece here, or at least there's going to be more information out of that. But, of course, Kwesi is the GM, so ultimately he does bear responsibility.
Go ahead, Swag.
Yeah, I think, man, I love that you asked that question, RC, because a big part of it is, too, did you get caught up in thinking that Sam Darnold had maximized everything that he could do and kind of fell into the idea of that this was a one-year wonder, right? Are you paying for that more than making a decision about taking a quarterback? And obviously it wasn't a one-year wonder, because Sam has performed well throughout the season for the Seattle Seahawks. That's why I say the amount of pressure that probably those last two games as an organization said, the question probably that they asked themselves is, can we win a Super Bowl? We see that we can have a really good season. We see that we can position ourselves for a really good playoff spot, but can we win a Super Bowl? And they made that bet on J.J. McCarthy, thinking that it was more about Sam Darnold's 2 games than the 14 the previous that they had seen, which is a slippery slope.
All right, new on NFL Live. Staying in the NFC North, the Packers have signed Brian Gutekunst, Matt LaFleur, and Russ Ball to contract extensions. So that's something to keep an eye on. There were some questions, of course, for a while there if LaFleur would move on. He's going to stay. Now, speaking of Green Bay, the Eagles are hiring Packers quarterback coach Sean Mannion as their new offensive coordinator. We were waiting for this one, right? For Jalen Hurts, it now marks his 13th play caller of his college and pro career as Philly tries to reset an offense that couldn't seem to find their rhythm this season. And it has been a bit of a free fall for this Eagles offense. Philly ranked top 6 in rush yards per game efficiency and first downs per game last season. They were the bottom half of the league in all 3 this season. Didn't look pretty either. Sean Mannion, set to be the Eagles' 5th offensive coordinator in 6 seasons under Nick Sirianni. RC, there's so much that goes with this. It's not just getting this offense back on track. It's dealing with what it's like to be the OC of the Philadelphia Eagles, that fan base, what you may deal with. What do you think of this hire of Sean Mannion?
Well, I think Sean Mannion has some things that work in his favor. He was in the quarterback room, not to me that developed Jordan Love, but one that's helped Malik Willis progress and become a quarterback who in this offseason can be one of the hottest free agents. You've worked with Matt LaFleur. My question is, if you're the Philadelphia Eagles, why wasn't your job more attractive to to coaches, to quarterback coaches, or to former OCs and head coaches who could have gotten this job? When you look at guys like Mike McDaniel and Brian Daboll, with having Saquon Barkley, AJ, Devontae on the outside, and obviously Jalen Hurts at the quarterback position. When you look at the last few hires, Shane Steichen and Kellen Moore, both were previous play callers. We go to Brian Johnson and Kevin Patullo, who were elevated off of the staff, and those guys struggled. And so I know you would have wanted an experienced play caller. We have to wait and see how well Sean Mannion works, but I would love to know the process of landing on him as the next OC.
I mean, you have to believe, RC, to your point, that the outside part of it has something to do with some of this decision-making from these offensive coordinators dealing with what the Philly fans are, right? And look, we talked about that throughout the season with Patullo and the egging of his house and all of that. I'm sure, like, we have to remember, man, these are people. And these guys have families that they have to think about as well. And I'm sure conversations are going around more than just, hey, I want to go coach there. But I want to get to the point with Sean Mannion, because I think you made the best one. And it was the development of Malik Willis. And it also was how well he threw the football down the field. Y'all, let's make no mistake about it. Like, Philly had to get better at being creative. They had to get better at play calling and putting, Jalen Hurts and these wide receivers in a better situation. But also, one thing that lacked this year was them being able to push the ball down the field. Even when they were a heavy run team on their way to the Super Bowl, we saw more explosive outings from them throughout the season through the air. And I think that has something to do with it. And then you look at it from Mannion's perspective, you're working with a quarterback with some of the same similarities and traits that y'all, why is the name
Malik Willis, Jalen Hurts.
Malik Willis had. So I think there was I think there was an enticing measure for him about that correlation between Malik Willis and Jalen Hurts as well.
They do have a lot in common in terms of the dual threat ability, the preference to throw the ball deep outside the numbers. So there is some interesting connective fiber there. I think what Green Bay was able to do with Willis that Philadelphia could not was run the ball, not Willis carrying the football, but the entire run game, whereas the Eagles' run game was awful. And I keep going back to that. That has to be a priority for Philadelphia. Jalen Hurts is, I think, a quarterback with, a tremendous ceiling, but to get there, you have to have the run game because of his preference to throw the ball away from the middle of the field. You have to get certain defensive looks against him, and you cannot unless you can run the football. This job, to me, is like the ultimate high-risk, high-reward job, right? The bar is so low from last year. You have the potential to show some real improvement, and obviously you have great pieces to work with. But we also know the risk that comes with it because of the scrutiny. I do like the idea that I like the fact that they went outside, not just with Mannion, but also Josh Grizzard from Tampa. I think the fact that they're bringing in outside thinking is a good thing if you're Philadelphia, because we saw last season what happened when they just went internally with Sirianni's friend.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up Josh Grizzard because I realized it didn't work out with Baker Mayfield in Tampa. They moved on, but I think he's a talented offensive mind and will bring a lot potentially to Jalen Hurts. From Adam Schefter, ESPN sources, the Baltimore Ravens are hiring Bears offensive coordinator Declan Doyle as their OC. Doyle can leave because in Baltimore he'll have play calling responsibilities. But new Ravens head coach Jesse Minter now has someone to run Baltimore's offense. Interesting. We were waiting to see what move this would be, and this is it. Declan Doyle taking over. We saw certainly you guys what he was able to do with the Bears and Caleb Williams in that season last year. Marcus, what do you think of this hire for Lamar Jackson and company?
I love this hire. One, he's coming from who we regard as one of the top play callers in the league with his head coach, but also a team that's really committed to running the football. And you see the development of Caleb Williams under his tutelage as well. So you look at Lamar. Lamar already has all of these phenomenal characteristics as a quarterback, but there were times I think situational is what the Ravens needed to get better at offensively. Like game by game, specific situational, the way that they wanted to call plays. It always seemed like when the firestorm come, now we'll hand the ball to Derrick Henry and we'll become a little bit more nuanced with our run game. So I look forward to seeing some of the creativity that we know is going to come over from what they were able to do in Chicago. I'm excited about it. And obviously it's something that Lamar Jackson either signed off on or had some conversation with based on how we heard this would go from Bisciotti and also how we heard Jesse Minter talk about putting Lamar in a position to be even better than what we've seen him be.
Yeah, share a lot of those sentiments. First of all, I had to get over the fact that I saw he's 29 years old, which makes me want to just crawl into the ocean.
That's crazy, right?
How impossible.
Come on.
How are we so old, guys?
I'm sure he's very good, but that's just really young. Marcus, you made a really good point there. There's a lot of through lines between the Bears offense and what the Ravens do and what we think that they should do. Love the fact that he worked with tight ends. The Ravens are a very tight end-centric offense, of course. The run game with Chicago, you saw a lot of similar creativity in terms of formation and personnel usage, motion to open up things. But the difference, of course, being now he gets the greatest asset to a run game anyone can have, and that's Lamar Jackson. So I'm excited to see that, the play action pass off of that. And this is an opportunity for the quarterback and the play caller, who are pretty close in age, to grow together, right? Because I think Marcus is right. I think Lamar had a hand here. You got a defensive head coach. This isn't a guy coming, this is about as far off age-wise from Todd Monken as you can get. This is not a guy coming in and saying, Lamar Jackson, let me tell you how it is. This is an opportunity for the two of them to collaborate, and I think that could be really exciting.
Yeah, I think what's also really cool about Declan Doyle is he worked with Sean Payton. And for whatever you want to say about Sean Payton, he's been one of those offensive minds that has shown you evolution with the game. There's so many of these coaches who were great in the late 2000s or great during a decade ago, and they haven't evolved. They haven't figured out how to acclimate to the new athlete of this age. He's seen that firsthand with Sean Payton, and then obviously coaching with Ben Johnson as well. And you look at some of the quarterbacks that he's been around, some of the players that he's seen, Taysom Hill in New Orleans. You saw the same thing with Bo Nix, who was drafted late when he was with the Denver Broncos, and then obviously last year with Caleb. So the run game is largely important, but understanding how to use a quarterback that can utilize his legs and the ways that that helps you to get them easy throws, easy completions, and there have to be some drive for the Baltimore Ravens where Lamar Jackson doesn't have to do much and he doesn't have to carry the load all the time.
Yeah, it's a good point. The Bears were one of 5 offenses this season that ranked top 10 in pass yards and rush yards per game. Obviously, Ben Johnson and his run game had a big piece in that, but Declan Doyle certainly a part of it. Also, just to confirm, we kind of just said it, but Lamar Jackson and Declan Doyle are the exact same age at 29 years old, which has now successfully made all of us feel like real old farts.
They don't walk in the room like, what's happening, Woody?
Hey.
What's happening?
What up, Dad? What up, Dad?
Good old Dad.
Baby.
Hey, maybe that's what solidified the deal. They said, hey, you 29? Yeah, I'm 29 too. All right, let's make this happen.